Have you ever like scroll through Instagram and you see these super like amazing photos and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this person's stunning. And then later you find out it's an AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy, right? Getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not when it comes to like these influencers on social media.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what we're going to dive deep on today. We're talking about AI influencers and models, all built with AI image generation tools.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's like, it really is a new frontier. And I think people are just starting to wrap their heads around the implications of it all.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. We're talking about open source tools like Stable Diffusion that agencies are using
Right.
to meticulously craft these AI personas. Like they're staging photo shoots, producing videos, just like they would with a real human influencer.
Yeah, and it's so accessible. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone with a computer and an internet connection can download Stable Diffusion and start creating.
It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
And then you hear about these AI influencers making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the future of like influence? What does this mean for the future of modeling?
Yeah.
What does this even mean for the average person scrolling through their feed?
Right.
It's something that we need to kind of unpack a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we see these images and they're so realistic. And sometimes we don't even know that they're AI generated.
Right.
And that raises a whole host of issues around authenticity and transparency and, even like ethical concerns.
Yeah, for sure.
But on the other hand, it's also incredibly exciting
Wow.
because it opens up all these creative possibilities that we've never even considered before.
Right.
So it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So can you kind of break down the tech behind this for me? Like I know we mentioned Stable Diffusion.
Yeah.
But like, what is that? Like how are they making these AI models so lifelike?
Okay, so imagine Stable Diffusion as this massive database of images. And then you have these algorithms that are trained on this database. And so when you give the algorithm a prompt, it basically goes through this database and kind of like stitches together different elements to create something new.
I see.
So it's not just copying and pasting, it's actually like generating something unique based on the information that it's been trained on. And then on top of that, you have all these advancements in post-production techniques that are making them look even more realistic.
So there's like a whole other step after the image is generated where they kind of clean it up and make it look more realistic.
Exactly. So you can imagine it like, a traditional photo shoot. You have the photographer, you have the lighting, you have the makeup artist.
Yeah.
And then in post-production, you have someone who's retouching the photos, smoothing out imperfections,
Right.
adjusting the colors, all that stuff. It's the same thing with AI models.
Okay. So they basically are taking all the techniques that we use to make human models look even better in photos, and they're applying it to these AI models.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting is that the line between what's real and what's not is becoming increasingly blurred. I mean, even experts sometimes have trouble telling the difference.
Right.
So it really raises questions about like, what is beauty?
Right.
What is authenticity?
Yeah.
What is real?
And like, even if you are a professional photographer or someone who works with, images all the time,
Right.
even those people are fooled.
Exactly.
So it's not like, oh, well, if you know what to look for,
Mhm.
you'll be able to spot an AI. It's like, these are getting so good
Yeah.
that it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, it really is.
So you mentioned earlier, like some of these AI influencers are making millions of dollars. Are there any like standout examples?
Yeah, definitely. So you have Lil Miquela. She's kind of like the OG AI influencer.
Okay.
She's been around for a while. She's got millions of followers. She's partnered with brands like Calvin Klein Prada. She even releases her own music.
Wow. That's insane.
It's crazy. And then you have Shudu Graham. She's a model created by a photographer. She's worked with brands like Balmain. She's been featured in Vogue.
Okay. So like these are legitimate, like
Yeah.
high fashion brands
Yeah.
that are working with these AI models.
Exactly. And I think what's interesting for brands is that AI models offer a lot of advantages.
Okay.
They're completely controllable. They're always available. They never age. They never get sick.
Right. And they're
You don't have any personal drama.
and they're probably a lot less expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really like a no-brainer for a lot of brands.
So I guess the question is, what happens to human models?
Right. I think that's the big question on everyone's mind. Are AI models going to replace human models?
Yeah.
And I think it's a valid concern, but I don't think it's necessarily a black and white situation. I think it's more likely that we're going to see a shift towards collaboration. So you might have human models working alongside their AI counterparts in campaigns, or you might have virtual influencers becoming brand ambassadors. It's a whole new landscape that we're just starting to explore.
So maybe it's not about replacement. It's more about like adaptation.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to integrate this new tech in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. I think the key is to recognize the unique strength of both human and AI models and find ways to leverage those strengths in a complementary way.
Right. Like humans bring like the emotions of the personality and like a real connection to the world.
Yeah. And AI models offer consistency, scalability, and they can transcend physical limitations. So it's really about finding that balance.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So, okay, this is kind of a heavy topic.
Yeah.
We talked about the tech. We talked about the ethical implications. We've talked about the future of modeling. What's like the one key takeaway that you want our listener to walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that AI models are not just a fad. They're here to stay. And they're going to continue to evolve in ways we can't even imagine yet. So as consumers, we need to be aware of this technology. We need to be critical of the images that we're consuming. And we need to ask questions like, who created this image? What's the purpose of this image?
Right.
And are we okay with this?
Yeah. So it's really a call to action for all of us to be more mindful as we scroll through our feeds.
Exactly. Because it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we as a society choose to interact with it.
All right. Well, that was a really thought-provoking deep dive. I know I'm going to be looking at my Instagram feed a little differently now.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's just the beginning of the conversation.
Right. Because this technology is only going to get more sophisticated.
Exactly.
And it's going to raise even more questions in the future.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need to keep talking about and keep thinking about. So until next time, stay curious, stay critical. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
It was a good one.